Celtics with the win, 112-104. They've now gone 6-1 since losing to the Nets earlier in January on the 14th. Now that win by the Nets snapped a 10-game losing streak against the Celtics, but it looks like order has been restored. Let's talk a little bit about the Celtics, though, because outside of the context of Anthony Davis, this is still a team that is looking to compete for championships at this point in their rebuild.
And it looks like they're headed back in that direction. A lot of talk early in the season, question marks about whether or not this year's Celtics were going to be able to put aside the ego, the minutes, the touches, and really come together as a team and play with that continuity that we saw them play with last season. And after some rough moments, Kyrie Irving speaking out on some things, having some kind of leadership ups and downs, it seems like they've really rallied together as a group, and they're playing some good basketball.
Well, adversity is usually opportunity for good teams and well-run teams. And I think Boston's turned this into opportunity. They had a galvanizing moment where they had the issues with the locker room and who talks and who doesn't talk, and I've talked too much, and LeBron is right. I was a young player once. We got past all of that because all they really want to do is win. And I think when you've got a player in Gordon Hayward's situation coming off of the injury, and it starts when he volunteers to come off the bench, and then you get Marcus Smart back in the starting lineup, and you get an elite role player who's going to do all the dirty work, it helps the pieces start to fall into place. And eventually that team, because they've got too many kids and too many players that are about the right things, and they're playing for we and not me, eventually it happens. But it was going to take a lot of time because you took Tatum and Brown, you gave them all the ball dominance of being focal points, taking them to the conference finals, and then you said, yeah, not so much.
Right.
That's not going to be your role.
Right.
Well, when you've never had any other role, it takes a while to figure out. And so it made sense that it would take quite a while, and it also made sense based on what they've built that they'd figure it out.
Well, you brought up the player who's always been willing to do what it took to contribute in any capacity, Marcus Smart. Let's hear what he had to say when the Nets beat the Celtics really recently in January. Marcus Smart warming up, and take a look at this. He said that the bench was telling him last time they would live with it if he was the one shooting, so he said, I made sure they lived with it. And D-Fish, he came out trying to prove the Nets wrong again. The three, then the finish with the floater, then Terry Rozier back to Smart for three more. Now, he had 11 points on 4 of 6 from the field in the first quarter alone.
Marcus Smart always makes smart plays.
There you
but knocking down the threes tonight, and letting the bench know about it,
right.
too.
His name is not Marcus Stupid, that's for sure. D'Angelo Russell coming out, scoring 14 points in the third quarter, perhaps an Eastern Conference All-Star.
I mean, if the Nets keep pushing,
I'd give him a reserve spot.
Good slide up there.
One of the hottest teams since December.
Have to work on that list.
Why not, right?
Huh.
Leading the way at that point, 71-68 after another three, but the Celtics just too much in that fourth quarter. Jaylen Brown driving, laying it in. He finished with 21 points in this game. Get it done both inside and out as well.
Jaylen Brown's been one of those guys that's been up and down with the Celtics trying to figure their groove out, get back in rhythm. Good performance tonight by Jay Brown.
Marcus Smart, by the way, said he wanted him to live with it, and, well, he made sure they did. He finished with 21 points and 7 assists, so facilitating a bit there too, D-Fish.
Yeah, all-around game. He's one of those guys that's a barometer for the Celtics team. When he's knocking down perimeter shots, he makes them a really dangerous group.
The Celtics go on to win at 112-104. Elsewhere on this 5-game Monday night, the Pacers wishing Victor Oladipo well in his recovery with T-shirts that say "Together for Vic." Hosting DeMarcus Cousins and the Warriors, a scary moment here early on off the steal. Cousins taking it all the way in transition. Miles Turner, though, taking him down. The call here is a flagrant one.
Yeah, I don't think Miles intended to, put him in harm's way, but understand the call, just trying to make sure that players are protected when they attack the basket that way. And glad to see Boogie get up and walk that one off and end up with a great performance.
Yeah, there he is. He's
bang,
okay.
bang.
Yeah. Knocking down the three, putting the Warriors up 15-9 early on. We've got one of Smitty's under the rim nominees. Are you kidding? Stephen Curry splitting defenders behind the back. What? And getting the floater to go off the glass.
Giant killer.
Not a free throw attempted, by the way, because why would he need to?
Oh.
Okay, yeah, so that was really impressive. Klay Thompson with the one-handed slam. But take a look here at Steph again. Why have things been so slippery for him lately?
Not sure what that is.
He's the best. Now, courtesy of Second Spectrum, here's a look at the tough threes that Curry's taking. 38% from that spot, and from even deeper, 32%, plus the added pressure of beating the buzzer there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the percentages matter because he's basically a 50-50, 90 guy.
Right.
But those are just unreal shots. You can't guard that.
Come on. He finished with 26 points, 6 of 8 from 3. Kevin Durant this time finishing in transition, the dunk and the foul. He'd make that free throw, putting the Warriors up 83-58, but the best scoring game of the year for Boogie thus far. He not only got it done outside, like we saw earlier in our highlights, but inside as well. He had a season-high 22 points.
Yeah, he really changes the Warriors' dynamic in terms of his physicality around the basket and in the paint. 7 for 9 from the free throw line tonight for DeMarcus Cousins. The Warriors aren't a high free throw attempt team because of the perimeter shooting, and I like the fact that he's going to get to the free throw line, which allows the Warriors to get their defense set even more often, which makes them even better.
Yeah, 132-100 is the final score. The Warriors with an 11th win in a row. That is now a season high. Then again, 9 wins in a row and 10 wins in a row were also season highs. They are rolling. But minutes from now, we've got the Atlanta Hawks in LA to take on the Clippers. The Hawks now 1-1 on this West Coast road trip. Do you see, though, as the Clippers welcome the Hawks to town and try to stay within this Western Conference playoff picture, this as, well, an opportunity?
Well, every night's an opportunity, but in the Western Conference in particular, when you have games that you are supposed to win, you have to. Because I think at the end of this regular season, one win, similar to the Nuggets T-Wolves last year, one win is going to determine whether you're in the playoffs or you are not. So the Clippers, it's not a must win, but these are the games they need to be able to take care of against.
Especially, though, with the parity this season in the Western Conference, where just a couple of games dictates whether you're number 3 in the Western Conference playoff picture or number 10.
And that makes a huge difference in the West because you already know everybody's going to try to avoid the Warriors.
Right.
So you do not want to be the 8 seed, to be honest. You might as well not be in the postseason.
Right.
So really every win,
because you only will be for 4 more games.
Every win is going to count. Getting up to that 7th spot for teams like the Clippers, the Lakers, the Kings, that's going to be really important.
Well, Casey, Candace, Smitty, and Rowe are on the other side of this break because tip-off between the Hawks and Clippers is coming up next as Game Night Monday continues. All-NBA forward Anthony Davis has informed the New Orleans Pelicans that he won't sign a contract extension and he wants to be traded. He's eligible for a 5-year Supermax extension this summer worth $240 million. He'll be a free agent the summer of 2020. Let's hear from Drew Holiday and Coach Alvin Gentry.
Heard from AD and what are kind of your thoughts on that?
Just he had to do what he had to do for his family, and for him, what's best for his career. So Anthony's always been professional, and he's always been professional with us, and even more so, he's been friends and like a brother. So whatever decision he makes, I can't be upset with him. I know this is a business, but he's doing what's best for him.
I didn't want to imagine it happening, no. But you know, I mean, the NBA, you know, the things, you know, stuff happens, you know, so you deal with it, and that's what we're doing. We're dealing with, you know, what we have and what's going on here, and that doesn't mean that we're not going to continue to compete and try to turn our season around and see what can happen with it.
Let's talk a little bit about this potential trade. You guys have smiles on your faces because the rumor mill is a-churning, folks. Lonzo Ball's camp has now made it abundantly clear that if he were, in fact, included in a trade package from the Lakers, that he wants to be with a franchise that doesn't already have an established point guard. Griff, I'm just going to let
adorable.
you take it away.
I'm so grateful.
I'm done.
I am. I think it's adorable. They're just letting us know where they prefer to go. It's wonderful. Don't you feel like you missed out on playing in a league where you get to dictate this? So the reason this is so meaningful is if you're New Orleans and you're going to do a deal with the Lakers, which I think is very overblown, by the way, but if that's the destination you're looking at, Drew Holiday has been exceptional when he's played with another point guard. In theory, Lonzo Ball fits really, really well. But what doesn't fit really well is LeVar Ball. And the reason is Anthony Davis is asked out. And he's asked out because he has said, I can't win a championship here. I'm not healthy here or happy here. Well, the last thing you want then, if you're Dell Demps and the Pelicans, is to bring in another player who's going to make noise about being unhappy here. And you know what's really sad is it's not the player. It's not Lonzo Ball. All he's done is hoop.
Right.
It's LeVar Ball. And that actually does factor into this quite a bit. If you are New Orleans, you would literally make a decision potentially about a player you bring simply because you don't need more noise and drama in New Orleans. And that's really unfortunate if that was a player you were interested in.
Because you have to take it a step further. If he is included in a trade package that sends him to New Orleans and then he's unhappy, the franchise
right now
foundation continues to crumble.
Yeah, Griff is right on. You don't need another young player,
right?
Number 2 pick in the draft, really developing, I think, into a really good player, has a bright future to come into New Orleans, and between him, his dad, his camp, quote unquote, to be unhappy with also being in New Orleans and trying to now force his way out. Really tough situation for the Pelicans from that regard, and potentially for the Lakers. It could end up being something that prevents the deal from happening, assuming that that's what they're working on, and now lend itself towards another team being in the hunt to land Anthony Davis.
And you know firsthand how hard it is to play point guard as a rookie in this league. And Lonzo had a very good rookie year for a point guard if all you focus on is what he actually produced.
Yes.
But there's so much noise around the kid, he doesn't even get a fair shake. And it's really unfortunate for that to come out when it did. I think to some degree his injury and surgery corresponded to not wanting to be traded in the offseason. So they've done many things to dictate too much of the outcome for Lonzo off the court. Just leave Lonzo alone and let him dictate outcome on the court, and he can be a very, very key part of a very good team.
Griff, as I've scrolled through social media today, the NBA fortunately has many brilliant fans, but also some fans that don't understand why Anthony Davis can't come be part of their team. Will you break that down for the fans of perhaps the Celtics who would like to see him in green?
Yeah, so many fans actually could explain this better than I can. But I think ultimately what it comes down to is the easiest way to put it is Anthony Davis is a designated extension player. That means when he received his rookie extension, he received it as a designated player, which made it so that because he was eligible for additional money, by way of example, he became a Rose Rule player. He qualified for all of the criteria that made it possible to be a Rose Rule player. But he was also a designated player. And that's the key, because Boston has a designated player who signed an extension in Cleveland that we gave him as a designated player. He actually got 27.5% of the cap because he met criteria. You cannot acquire 2 of those designated players by trade and have them on the team at the same time. However, once July 1 rolls around and Kyrie can opt out and be coming back as a free agent, then you could acquire Anthony Davis in Boston. Kyrie resigns, you can have them both. You just can't have 2 designated players you acquired via trade at the same time.
Do you think then, D-Fish, that perhaps the timing of this trade request speaks loud and clearly as to where he actually wants to be? Because if it were Boston, why not wait until July?
Well, I do think it gives us a little bit of a feel for what he, maybe his agent, and Anthony Davis's, camp are thinking. I'm sure they understand this window that Griff just described, which developed from Derrick Rose having an MVP season as the youngest player in the history of our game. So there had to be some rules that spoke to those players being rewarded financially sooner than others. Davis's camp understands that. They have to know that this is the case. And it's a 7-day window here to see what can possibly happen. And there's basically no love lost. If it doesn't happen, they still have the offseason to look forward to. But now everyone knows Anthony Davis' intent is to not re-sign with the Pelicans. And I think everyone assumed that before, but now it's a reality.
Well, and I think one of the things that's really revealing in terms of the position that New Orleans is in from a position of power standpoint, when we saw Drew Holiday interviewed, they're not surprised in New Orleans. This is something they've known all year, and they've made it through a very difficult season to this point anyway. So I don't think the gambit of let's put all of the pressure on them for 7 days pays off ultimately, because I think the team itself is so comfortable in the space of AD probably is leaving.
And
right?
I think they knew that.
Right, they knew that already.
But to Anthony Davis's credit, I think he honestly wanted to see what they could accomplish this season.
Yeah.
And I do think some of the injuries and just the poor timing of some bad play, it left them kind of in a spot where they're just not going to be able to compete in the West. I think he wanted to do that, and now that that's clear, I think he felt like it was time to put it out there.
If we take it a step further, is it too soon to say that perhaps 1 month from now, LeBron James could be the longest tenured Laker?
Wow.
Well, you know what's funny? If you think about it in terms of what a package would look like within 7 days, it's hard for me to conceive of feeling like that Laker package is what you want and not having already made a deal. Right? If you're Dell Demps and the Pelicans, that same Laker package has been on the table the whole year in theory, right? So why are these 7 days going to make you be more urgent? I think if you're Dell Demps and the Pelicans, what you need to be is very patient. Yeah. And you need to be mindful of the fact that the offer will get better once Boston gets into the mix. And maybe there's 3 or 4 of those guys that you've wanted that Magic and Rob Pelinka haven't been willing to part with. I don't think you should feel specific pressure relative to this time frame.
No way.
Ultimately, the leverage you have is that he's under contract for this year and 1 more. And that's really meaningful. He can't opt out until after next season.
Right.
So for Dell Demps' situation, he doesn't have to have incredible urgency now. He has to make the best deal he can possibly make. And in all likelihood, waiting until the end of the season gives him that opportunity.
Well, we're calling it Game Night Monday, which means we have a doubleheader right here on NBA TV, but it also means that it is a 5-game Monday night. We're going to have highlights and analysis as it continues after the break. And this, by the way, Kent Bazemore, the Hawks against the Clippers, the second of our doubleheader coming up. He signs the shoes while they're still on. Is that the easiest way to do it, D-Fish?
It might have been the easiest way to do it, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought perhaps taking them off, holding them with one hand, signing them with the other.
That's probably longer.
I think, though, now that Steph knows he's not going to be on Shaqtin' a Fool, he doesn't have to worry about if he trips over his own feet. It won't matter. But look at that. A young fan. Oh, she's brought to tears. Now I'm going to cry. She cries. Now I'm going to cry. Oh.
That's great.
Love it.
That's great.
Love it. Look how excited she is. What a cool thing. Welcome back into our NBA TV studios. Kristen Ledlow here, the 5-time NBA champion, Derek Fisher, as well as the Sparks head coach, Derek Fisher.
Hopefully more championships to come.
Yeah, exactly. Did you hear Candace talk a little bit about that during the game? Like, oh, well, wait, you heard her.
I heard the inter-game wagers.
They were talking about wagers during games, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, my head coach
I'll
is
just block that part
in
out.
the studio right now. We probably need to nip that in the bud. We watched yet another decisive Warriors victory. They've now won a season-best 11 in a row. They're going for a 3rd championship in a row. So we could talk about what makes them great, but let's talk a little bit more about what DeMarcus Cousins is bringing to this lineup. As you were watching him, what is it that impresses you most about what he's bringing to this offense?
Well, I think the different levels that he's impacting the game. Big body, able to set screens, but then as he catches defenders at the wrong angles trying to cover him, that's when he starts to present problems. So if we can, let's set this up. We got our resident Klay Thompson out here, Shane, over here getting ready to come off this little pin down. The ball's at the top. And Boogie Cousins with his size. When he comes, he sets pin downs, sets screens, shooters coming off like Steph and Klay, force the defenders to get on the high side of Boogie to try and prevent them from curling, getting the easy layups. So as soon as Boogie feels Sabonis, TJ Lee, anybody that was on his high side, he's turning, sealing, catching these guys on his upper shoulder here, and he catches and he can turn and finish so easily. So that's the first way that he was really impacting the game tonight. Now we can go to the other side. We'll go with a post entry. Now Boogie's on the post. He catches it. Griff talked a lot about this little squeeze action that the guard set. So now he has it, forces the defense to now take a look at him. These guys start cutting off each other, and he's such a great and willing passer. And so when you talk about him being able to efficiently score in the block, being a willing passer, we saw him make a 3 early in the game. That's just really impossible to cover the Warriors, but it all starts with a willingness. You don't just put great players on the floor and they just go out and play great. The culture, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, what they've built from scratch, it makes it easier to plug Boogie in, but he's showing a willingness that everybody really was not sure he'd be showing right away.
It's so easy to fall in love with him statistically, his scoring ability, his ability to crash the boards, but he's also playing now at a faster pace than he ever has throughout his career, much faster than he was in Sacramento, in New Orleans. And not only is he doing that, he's having to come back from an injury and do that. Are you surprised by not just his willingness to fit into this offense, but how well he's fit in this early on?
I am surprised, in particular for a big player.
Right.
Coming off of a lower extremity injury, sometimes it's difficult to emulate how much activity is required to move that big body up and down the floor, being engaged on the defensive end, also setting screens, moving around the floor on the offensive end. But it's been impressive. I think their ability to keep his minutes short allows him to play a faster pace than he's accustomed to playing. He can build his conditioning up over time. It was great when they have separation like they did tonight.
Right.
It allows Steve Kerr to actually put him back in the fourth quarter, start to get those minutes up from 16 to 20, 22 a night, and build his conditioning base up. By the time they get to the postseason, he's going to be able to play some longer minutes.
And let him facilitate that offense some, too. That's what's so impressive is you watch him wave off his guards and facilitate the offense in transition.
Yes. All 5 players now with the Warriors being able to rebound, initiate the transition offense. All of a sudden, your center is pushing it up the floor. You have the greatest shooters in the game running ahead with the wings, and it's hard to stop.
Really discouraging for the other 29 teams. But just days ago, Steve Kerr became the fastest head coach to ever win 300 games. I mean, goodness. Let's hear what he had to say after this, well, now 11th win in a row.
Unbelievable trip. Just a really good way to finish it, too, with everybody playing, everybody contributing. Leading from start to finish, and I was a little worried about this game. Just, everybody's anxious to get home, but we finished off the trip the right way, and it's great to see.
When was the last time you've seen this focus, on a day-to-day, game-to-game basis?
I don't know if we ever have, actually, including tonight. But no, I'm just kidding. We've been more dialed in the last month than we have for sure all season, and for much of last season even. You can just see, that the turnovers are down. We're just more conscientious as a group, and guys are moving the ball. 39 assists tonight, so we're in a good groove. We're in a good place, but got to keep it going.
What do you guys have? Is there something about Steph's picking his spots that is just you've noticed this year that you like more that's led to his incredible efficiency numbers?
No, he's just being himself. I've been watching this for 5 years. He's got this skill set that you can't really fathom. The step back 3 at the end of the first half. I'm sure somebody's already done exactly how far it was. I don't know. Anybody know exactly? There it goes, 33-footer. Like it's nothing, and it doesn't matter. Time, score. He's always one shot away from being on fire. And when you've got Steph and Kevin in that mode of being aggressive and attacking, obviously it puts a lot of pressure on the opponent.
What progress did you see tonight with DeMarcus together in the third quarter?
I just thought he got a lot of work done inside tonight. He scored more hoops around the bucket than he probably has combined over the first 4 games. So some of that was game plan. You know, we wanted to run a couple sets to try to get him the ball in there, to get him used to that. And some of it was just, I think, him feeling more comfortable with his conditioning and his game.
Like kind of your ideal fit.
When game night Monday returns, the biggest news in basketball, at least thus far this season, Anthony Davis wants out. We'll discuss it after the break.